5 True Omegle Horror Stories. Story 1. The Watcher in the Window. It was 2 a.m. on a Thursday night when I decided to hop on Omegle. I was bored, couldn't sleep, and figured I'd chat with some random strangers to pass the time. College life was stressing me out and I needed a distraction. The first few chats were typical. People asking where I was from, what I was doing, the usual small talk. Then I connected with someone who immediately caught my attention. "You look tired," was the first message that popped up. I hadn't turned on my camera yet. The screen showed the standard "your partner is using a mobile device" message. A chill ran down my spine, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were just making a lucky guess, how can you tell? "I don't have my cam on," I typed back. "Your bedroom light is on. It's the only one in the building. 3rd floor corner room." My hands froze over the keyboard. I lived in a college dorm, 3rd floor, corner room. My heart started racing as I slowly turned to look at my window. The blinds were closed, but suddenly that didn't feel like enough protection. "Who is this?" I typed frantically. "A friend. You should really get some sleep. You have that chemistry exam tomorrow at 9 a.m. Now I was terrified. I did have a chemistry exam the next morning. Only a few people knew about it, and none of them would be playing this kind of sick joke. I lived in a small college town where everyone knew everyone, but this felt different. This felt dangerous. "Where are you?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. "Close. Close enough to see you're getting scared. You keep looking at your window." I hadn't realized I was doing it, but they were right. Every few seconds, my eyes darted to the window. The building across from mine was mostly empty. It was an old academic building that was only used during the day. At night, it was completely dark, except tonight. Tonight, there was a faint glow coming from one of the windows directly across from mine. "Look outside," came the next message. Against every instinct screaming at me not to, I walked to my window and carefully lifted one slat of the blinds. Across the courtyard in the dark building, I could see the blue glow of a phone or laptop screen. And silhouetted against that glow was the outline of a person. They were watching me. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I ran back to my laptop. "Please leave me alone," I typed. "But we're having such a nice chat. Don't you want to know how I know so much about you?" I should have closed the laptop. I should have called campus security. Instead, some morbid curiosity kept me typing. "How? I've been watching you for weeks. You have the same routine every night. Dinner at 6 p.m. in the cafeteria. You always sit at the 3rd table from the left, facing the windows. You study in the library until 10 p.m., always at the computer station near the back. Then you come back here and stay up too late on your laptop." Every detail was accurate. My blood ran cold as I realized someone had been systematically stalking me without me having any idea. "You're lying," I typed, but I knew they weren't. "Last Tuesday, you wore your blue hoodie with the coffee stain on the left sleeve. You got that stain on Monday morning when you bumped into Jessica outside the student center. You were late for your 8 a.m. class." I looked down at the hoodie hanging on my chair. The coffee stain was exactly where they said it would be. Jessica was in my statistics class. Everything they were saying was true. "What do you want?" I managed to type with shaking hands. "Just to talk. You seem lonely. You don't have many friends. You eat alone, study alone, live alone. I thought you might like some company." "This isn't company. This is stalking." "Is it stalking if I'm just observing? You live your life so publicly, anyone could see what I see." I glanced at the window again. The figure was still there, still watching. I could make out more details now. They were wearing dark clothing and they seemed to be holding something up to their face. Binoculars maybe, or a camera with a long lens. "I'm calling the police," I typed. "No, you're not. You're going to keep talking to me because you're curious. You want to know who I am. You want to know how long I've been watching. You want to know what else I've seen." They were right, and I hated that they were right. Some sick part of me was fascinated by this whole situation. "Fine. How long have you been watching me?" "Since the beginning of the semester. September 15th was the first day I noticed you. You were crying outside the library because you failed your first quiz in organic chemistry. You called your mom, but she didn't answer. You sat on that bench for 47 minutes before going back to your room. I remembered that day perfectly. It had been one of my lowest moments. I had felt so alone and defeated. The thought that someone had been watching me during such a vulnerable moment made me feel sick. You looked so sad, they continued. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how to approach you. So I just started watching, learning about you. I thought maybe if I knew enough about you, I could figure out how to make you happy. This doesn't make me happy. This makes me terrified, I know. I'm sorry about that. I never wanted to scare you. I just wanted to be close to you. I looked at the window again. The figure had moved. They were no longer backlit by the screen. I squinted, trying to see where they had gone when I saw movement. They were at a different window now. A window on the ground floor. Where are you going? I typed quickly, nowhere, just getting a better view. The building they were in had an exit that led directly into the courtyard between our buildings. If they wanted to, they could be at my building in less than 2 minutes. Don't come over here, I typed. I wasn't planning to. Not tonight anyway. Not tonight. The implication hung in the air like a threat. If not tonight, then when? I should probably get some sleep, I typed, hoping to end this conversation. Yes, you should. You need to be rested for your exam. But first you should know something. I waited, dreading whatever was coming next. Your door is unlocked. My blood turned to ice. I never left my door unlocked. Never. I was paranoid about security, always double-checking the lock before bed. But as I turned to look at my door, I could see that the deadbolt wasn't engaged. I ran to the door and quickly locked it, then dragged my desk chair over and wedged it under the handle. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the chair. When I got back to my laptop, there was a new message waiting. Smart girl, but locks only keep out honest people. I slammed the laptop shut and grabbed my phone. I should call 911, I thought, but what would I tell them? That someone on the internet said they were watching me? That my door was unlocked? They'd think I was paranoid or crazy. Instead, I called my friend Sarah, who lived 2 floors down. Hello? She answered groggily. Sarah, I need you to come up here. Something's wrong. What's wrong? It's 3 a.m. I can't explain over the phone. Please just come up. I'm scared. Sarah was a good friend. Within 5 minutes, she was knocking on my door. I moved the chair and let her in, immediately locking the door behind her. What's going on? She asked, noticing my obvious distress. I told her everything. About the chat, the person watching me, the details they knew about my life. She listened with growing concern. We need to call campus security, she said when I finished, and tell them what? That someone on Omegle was mean to me? That someone has been stalking you for months? She was right. We called campus security, and they came to my room within 15 minutes. 2 officers took my statement and went to investigate the building across the courtyard. They found nothing. The building was locked and secure. No signs of forced entry. No evidence that anyone had been inside. Are you sure you saw someone over there? One of the officers asked. I was sure, but I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe the stress was getting to me. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. But when the officers left and Sarah went back to her room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. Good job calling for help, but I'm always watching, even when you can't see me. Especially when you can't see me. Sweet dreams. I never went on Omegle again. I changed my routine completely. Different dining times, different study spots, different routes to class. I even requested a room transfer, which was approved after I showed the note to the resident advisor. But sometimes, even now, years later, I catch myself checking over my shoulder, looking at windows across the street, wondering if someone somewhere is still watching. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't called Sarah. What would have happened if I had kept chatting with them? What would have happened if I hadn't locked my door? I try not to think about it too much, but the questions remain. haunting me like a ghost that never quite goes away. Story 2. The voice in the static eye was going through a rough time when I discovered Omegle's audio chat feature. My girlfriend had just broken up with me, I was failing 2 classes, and my parents were on my case about everything. Talking to strangers seemed like a good way to vent without judgment. Most of the voice chats were exactly what you'd expect. Awkward teenagers, people practicing English, the occasional weirdo. But one night I connected with someone who would change everything. At first there was nothing but static. Heavy, crackling static that hurt my ears. I was about to disconnect when I heard something underneath the noise. A voice so faint I almost missed it. "Help me," it whispered. I turned up my volume and leaned closer to my speakers. "Hello? Can you hear me?" I said into my microphone. The static continued, but the voice came through again, clearer this time. "Please, help me. I can't." It was a woman's voice, young, maybe in her 20s. She sounded terrified and desperate. "Where are you? What's wrong?" I asked. "I don't know where I am," she replied, her voice cutting in and out through the interference. "It's dark, so dark and cold." This had to be some kind of prank, I thought. Someone was messing with me, using audio clips or voice modulation software, but something in her voice sounded genuinely afraid. "What's your name?" I asked. Sarah Chen. I was driving home from work and then, I don't remember. "Please, you have to help me." "Okay, Sarah, stay calm. Where do you work?" "When did this happen?" "I work at Morrison Electronics on 5th Street. It was Wednesday. I can't remember if Morrison Electronics was a real place. I knew because my cousin had worked there briefly. It was about 30 miles from where I lived. "Sarah, can you see anything around you? Any landmarks?" "No, it's too dark. I think I'm underground. I can hear water dripping, and there's a smell, like rust and something else." The static was getting worse, making it harder to hear her. "Sarah, I'm going to try to help you, but I need you to tell me everything you remember." I was leaving work around 6 p.m. I always take the same route home. Someone was following me. A black car. I tried to lose them, but they were right behind me, and then... Her voice cut out completely for a moment, leaving only the terrible static. Sarah, are you there?" "I'm here," she whispered, and now she was crying. I think someone took me. I remember being pulled from my car. There was a cloth over my face and it smelled sweet, and then everything went black. My heart was racing. If this was real, I was talking to someone who had been kidnapped. But how was that possible? How could someone who was kidnapped have access to Omegle? "Sarah, how are you able to talk to me? Do you have your phone?" "I don't know. I woke up and there was this old computer here. It was already on, already connected to this site. Like someone wanted me to talk to people." A chill ran down my spine. Why would a kidnapper give their victim access to the internet? "Can you see the screen? Can you try to message the police or call for help another way?" I tried, but I can only access this one site. Everything else is blocked. "Please, you have to call the police for me." "Okay, I will. But first tell me more about where you are. Any details might help." "There's no windows. The walls are concrete. I can hear machinery running somewhere nearby. And there's other people here." "Other people? Are they okay?" "I don't think so. I can hear them sometimes, but they don't respond when I call out. They just make sounds, like they're in pain." I was getting more convinced this was real. The details were too specific, too consistent, and the fear in her voice was too genuine to fake. "Sarah, I'm going to call 911 right now. Stay on the line with me." I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 while keeping my headset on. 11, what's your emergency?" "I'm talking to someone online who says she's been kidnapped. Her name is Sarah Chen. She works at Morrison Electronics." "Sir, are you sure this isn't a prank call?" "I don't think so. She's giving me specific details. She says she's being held somewhere underground." The dispatcher took down all the information Sarah had given me and said they would look into it. The whole time I could hear Sarah crying softly through the static. "Sarah, I called the police. They're going to investigate. Thank you. Thank you so much." I was starting to think no one would ever find me. "How long have you been there?" "I don't know. There's no clocks, no windows. Could be days, could be weeks. Time doesn't mean anything here." The static was getting progressively worse and her voice was fading. "Sarah, I think we might lose connection. Is there anything else you can tell me?" "Yes. I think whoever has me, they've done this before. There are personal items here. Purses, wallets, jewelry. Like trophies." "What kind of jewelry?" "Rings, necklaces. There's a class ring here from Westfield High School. Class of 2019. Westfield High was in the next town over. If Sarah was telling the truth, this person had been taking victims from all over the area. Sarah, listen to me. You're going to be okay. The police are looking into this. You need to stay strong. I'm trying, but I'm so scared. What if he comes back? What if he finds out I've been talking to people?" "Who comes back?" "Have you seen the person who took you?" "Only once. When I first woke up. He was wearing a mask, but I could see his eyes. They were empty. Like there was nothing human left in them." The static suddenly got much louder, almost drowning out her voice completely. "I think someone's coming," she whispered, barely audible through the interference. "I can hear footsteps. Sarah, hide. Get away from the computer." "I can't. I'm chained to the wall. The computer is just close enough that I can reach it. Then pretend to be asleep. Don't let them know you've been talking to anyone." I can hear a door opening. "Oh God, he's coming downstairs. Sarah, stay quiet. Don't say anything." For several long minutes there was nothing but static. Then I heard new sounds through the interference. Footsteps. A deep voice saying something I couldn't make out, and then Sarah screaming. The scream cut through the static like a knife. It was pure terror, the sound of someone who knew they were about to die. Then the connection went dead. I sat in stunned silence for several minutes, staring at my computer screen. The Omegle page showed, "Your partner has disconnected." I tried to reconnect, hoping against hope that I might reach Sarah again, but I only got connected to other random strangers. The next morning I called the police to follow up. They told me they had looked into Sarah Chen and Morrison Electronics. There was indeed a Sarah Chen who worked there, but she had been missing for over a week. Her car had been found abandoned on a rural road 20 miles from town. But here's what really haunts me. The police said Sarah's case wasn't unique. Over the past 2 years, 7 young women had gone missing from the area under similar circumstances. All had been driving alone at night. All had their cars found abandoned. None had ever been found. I gave the police all the details from my conversation with Sarah, including the description of where she might be held. They searched abandoned buildings, old factories, anywhere that matched her description of the underground location. They found nothing. 3 months later, Sarah's body was found in a shallow grave 30 miles away. The coroner said she had been dead for at least 6 weeks, but that's impossible. I talked to her just 3 months ago. The police say I must be confused about the timing, that I must have talked to someone else or that it was all an elaborate prank. But I know what I heard. I saved the audio from that night and I've listened to it hundreds of times. It's Sarah's voice. I'm sure of it. The part that really scares me is this. If Sarah had been dead for weeks before I talked to her, then who was I really talking to that night? And why sometimes late at night when I'm trying to sleep, do I still hear her voice calling for help through the static of my dreams? Story 3. The countdown had started as a joke between my friends. We were having a sleepover at my house and someone suggested we all get on Omegle at the same time to see who could have the weirdest conversation. We were 16 and thought we were so clever. I was the last one to connect. My friends were already laughing at their screens, typing away with various strangers. When my chat finally loaded, I was greeted with a simple message, 72 hours, that was it. Just 2 words and a number. What? I typed back. 72 hours until it happens. Until what happens? Until you die. I laughed and called out to my friends. Hey guys, I got one of those death threat weirdos. Disconnect and try again, my friend Jessica called back. But something made me keep talking to this person. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the stubborn part of me that didn't like being told what to do. How am I supposed to die? I asked. Car accident. Tomorrow night, 11:47 p.m. Intersection of Maple and 3rd Street. Now that got my attention. Maple and 3rd was a real intersection about 10 minutes from my house. It was oddly specific for someone who was supposedly just messing around. Right, okay. And you know this how? I know things. About you. About what's going to happen. Like what? Your name is Amanda. You live at 847 Oak Street. You drive a blue 2018 Honda Civic. Your license plate is XRT 2847. I stopped typing. Every single detail was correct. My heart started beating faster. How do you know all that? I told you. I know things. I know that in 71 hours and 23 minutes you're going to run a red light at Maple and 3rd. A white pickup truck is going to hit your driver's side door. You'll die on impact. I looked around at my friends. They were still chatting away with their random strangers, completely oblivious to what was happening on my screen. You're lying, I typed. Maybe. Want to test it? Drive to Maple and 3rd tomorrow night at 11:47, see what happens. That's insane. Why would I do that? Because part of you believes me. Part of you knows I'm telling the truth. They were right, and that scared me more than anything. Something about the way they wrote, the confidence in their predictions made me think they weren't just some random person playing a prank. Let's say I believe you. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? I want to make a deal. What kind of deal? I can change what happens. I can save your life, but you have to do something for me first. Here it comes, I thought. They're going to ask for money or personal information or pictures or something gross. What do you want me to do? Kill someone else? I stared at the screen for a long moment, sure I had misread. What did you just say? You heard me. A life for a life. You kill someone and I'll make sure you don't die tomorrow night. Are you insane? I'm not going to kill anyone. Then you'll die. 70 hours and 18 minutes. I was about to disconnect when they sent another message. Her name is Margaret Foster. She's 67 years old. She lives alone at 1247 Pine Street. She has lung cancer. She's going to die in 6 months anyway. Wouldn't it be kinder to end her suffering now? You're sick. I'm practical. One old woman who's already dying, or one young woman with her whole life ahead of her. The choice is simple. There is no choice because this is all fake. You're just some creep trying to scare me. Margaret Foster, 1247 Pine Street. Go see for yourself. You'll find her medical records on her kitchen table. She just got back from her oncologist appointment today. I don't know why, but I wrote down the address. Margaret Foster, 1247 Pine Street. Even if that's all true, I would never hurt an innocent person. Innocent. Margaret Foster ran down a little girl with her car in 1987. The girl was 8 years old. Margaret was drunk, but her lawyer got her off with a suspended sentence. The girl spent 3 months in the hospital and walks with a limp to this day. I don't believe you. Emily Morrison. She's 42 now. She works at the post office downtown. Ask her about her left leg. Ask her about Margaret Foster. I'm disconnecting now. 69 hours and 12 minutes. I closed the laptop and tried to rejoin the conversation with my friends, but my mind was racing. Everything this person had said about me was true. What if they were right about Margaret Foster too? What if they were right about my accident? That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about the intersection of Maple and 3rd, about white pickup trucks, about Margaret Foster. The next morning I decided to do some research. I looked up Margaret Foster online and found an address listing at 1247 Pine Street. I looked up Emily Morrison and found that she did indeed work at the post office. I told myself I was just being thorough, just proving to myself that this was all nonsense. But deep down I was starting to believe. I drove to Pine Street that afternoon. 1247 was a small rundown house with overgrown landscaping. An old blue sedan sat in the driveway. As I sat in my car across the street, I saw an elderly woman come out to get her mail. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone who was sick. I couldn't bring myself to approach her, but I also couldn't leave. I sat there for an hour, watching this woman go about her daily routine, wondering if she really had killed a child, wondering if she really was dying of cancer. When I got home, I got back on Omegle, hoping to reconnect with the same person. It took me 47 tries, but eventually a familiar message appeared. In hours and 31 minutes. I saw her. Margaret Foster. She exists. Of course she does. I don't lie. That doesn't mean I believe the rest of it. Go to the post office. Ask for Emily Morrison. Tell her you're writing a report about drunk driving accidents. She'll tell you everything. I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't stop myself. The next morning, I went to the post office. Emily Morrison was a pleasant woman with graying hair and a slight limp. When I mentioned I was researching drunk driving accidents from the 1980s, her face changed. "Why do you want to know about that?" she asked. "It's for a school project. I'm looking at the long-term effects on victims." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I was 8 years old," she said quietly, walking to school with my best friend. A car came out of nowhere and hit me. The driver was drunk. It was 9:30 in the morning and she was already drunk. "Do you remember the driver's name?" "Margaret Foster." "I'll never forget that name." She got away with it too. Suspended sentence, community service, and a small fine. I spent 3 months in the hospital and had to learn to walk again. My blood ran cold. Everything the person on Omegle had told me was true. That night, I got back online. Hours and 16 minutes. Everything you said about Margaret Foster and Emily Morrison was true. No. But that doesn't mean you can predict the future, doesn't it? No, that's impossible. Want to test it? I'll predict something smaller. Something that will happen in the next 24 hours. Despite every rational part of my brain telling me to stop, I found myself typing, "Okay, tomorrow at 3:22 p.m., you'll receive a text message from your friend Jessica. She'll tell you that she's pregnant and she's scared to tell her parents. She'll ask you not to tell anyone else." I knew Jessica better than anyone. She wasn't even sexually active. There was no way she was pregnant. But at 3:22 p.m. the next day, my phone buzzed. "Amanda, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to tell anyone. I'm pregnant. I'm so scared to tell my parents. What should I do?" I stared at the message for 10 minutes, my hands shaking. It was exactly what the person had predicted, down to the exact time. That night, I was back online before I even realized what I was doing. "Guys, hours and 7 minutes. How did you know about Jessica?" "I know things. I know that your car accident is going to happen exactly as I described. And I know that Margaret Foster deserves to die for what she did to Emily Morrison. Even if that's true, I can't kill someone. I won't. Then you'll die. It's that simple. Why me? Why are you doing this to me?" "Because you're the only one who can make this choice. And because you're running out of time." I stared at the screen, my mind racing through possibilities. What if they were right? What if I really was going to die in 33 hours? What if the only way to save myself was to kill someone who probably deserved it anyway? How would I even do it? I found myself typing. "Make it look like an accident. She's old and sick. It wouldn't be hard. I can't do this. Then die." I closed the laptop and spent the next day in agony. Part of me wanted to believe it was all an elaborate hoax, but the predictions about Jessica and Margaret Foster were too accurate to ignore. As 11:47 p.m. approached, I made a decision. I got in my car and started driving toward Maple and 3rd Street. Not because I believed I was going to die, but because I needed to prove to myself that this was all nonsense. I arrived at the intersection at 11:45 p.m. The streets were mostly empty. I sat at the red light, watching for white pickup trucks, feeling foolish for even being there. At exactly 11:47 p.m., the light turned green. I pressed the gas pedal and started through the intersection. The white pickup truck came out of nowhere. I swerved hard to the right, my tires screaming against the asphalt. The truck missed my driver's side door by inches, instead clipping my rear bumper and sending me spinning into a nearby lamppost. I sat in my crumpled car, shaking uncontrollably, staring at the white pickup truck that had stopped in the middle of the intersection. The driver got out and ran toward me, apologizing profusely, saying he hadn't seen the red light. I was alive, but barely. If I hadn't swerved when I did, if I hadn't been ready for it, the truck would have hit me exactly where the person on Omegle had predicted. The next morning, with my car in the shop and my body aching from the accident, I got back online one more time. "You were right," I typed. "I know. How? Does it matter? You're alive. That's what counts." But I didn't kill Margaret Foster. No, you didn't. Someone else will have to make that choice. What do you mean? There are others, Amanda. Others who will face the same decision you faced, and maybe one of them will make the right choice. Before I could respond, they disconnected. I never went on Omegle again, but sometimes late at night I wonder about Margaret Foster. I wonder if she's still alive. I wonder if someone else got the same offer I did. And I wonder what I would have chosen if I hadn't been lucky enough to swerve in time. Story 4. The Mirror Game. My little sister convinced me to play something she called the Mirror Game on Omegle. She was 13 and I was 17, and normally I wouldn't have bothered with her silly games. But it was a rainy Saturday afternoon and I was bored enough to indulge her. "It's simple," Katie explained as we sat in front of my laptop. "You turn on your camera and wait until you find someone else who also has their camera on. Then you copy everything they do like you're their mirror. Whoever breaks first loses." It sounded harmless enough. We spent the first 10 minutes skipping through the usual perverts and weirdos until we found our first opponent. A girl about Katie's age who seemed excited to play. The game was actually kind of fun. We'd wave and she'd wave back. We'd make faces and she'd copy them. After about 5 minutes, she started laughing and typed "good game" before disconnecting. "See? Fun, right?" Katie said. "Let's find someone else." We played with several more people over the next hour. Some lasted longer than others, but it was all innocent fun until we connected with someone who would change everything. At first, we couldn't tell if it was a person or just a black screen. The video feed was extremely dark, but we could make out the faint outline of someone sitting in what looked like a bedroom. "Hello?" Katie typed in the chat. "Do you want to play the mirror game?" The figure on the screen didn't respond in chat, but they slowly raised their hand and waved. Katie waved back, excited to have found another player, but something was wrong. The person's movements were too precise, too deliberate. When Katie tilted her head to the left, they tilted theirs to the right, exactly like a true mirror reflection. "That's weird," I muttered. "They're doing it backward." "Maybe they don't understand the game," Katie said. She pointed at herself and then at the screen, trying to indicate that they should copy her exactly, not mirror her. The figure on the screen pointed back at Katie, but again, it was the wrong hand. They were using their left hand to point, creating a perfect mirror image of Katie's gesture. "This person is really good at this," Katie said, impressed. She started doing more complex movements, touching her nose, patting her head, doing a little dance. Each time the figure mirrored her actions perfectly, but always in reverse. I was starting to get an uneasy feeling about this person. There was something off about the way they moved, something too fluid and precise for a normal person playing a silly game. "Let's find someone else," I suggested. "No way, this person is awesome. Watch this." Katie stood up and did a cartwheel. Through the dark video feed, we could see the figure stand up and perform a perfect mirror image cartwheel. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The room behind the figure looked exactly like Katie's room, but reversed. The bed was on the opposite side. The posters on the walls were backward. Even the window was in the wrong place. "Katie," I said slowly, "look at their background." Katie squinted at the screen. "It looks like..." It looks like my room, but everything's backward. We both stared at the screen in silence. The figure had stopped moving and was just sitting there perfectly still, waiting for Katie to do something else. "This is some kind of trick," I said. "They must have software that flips the video feed or something." But even as I said it, I knew that didn't explain everything. The room wasn't just flipped, it was completely different. Things that should have been there weren't, and things that shouldn't exist were clearly visible. "Maybe it's a coincidence," Katie said, but her voice was uncertain now. The figure on the screen suddenly raised their hand and beckoned for Katie to come closer to the camera. Katie hesitated for a moment, then leaned forward. As she got closer to the webcam, the figure leaned forward too, and for the first time, we got a clear look at their face. It was Katie's face. But not quite. The features were all the same. The same brown eyes, the same freckles across the nose, the same wavy blonde hair. But there was something wrong with the expression. The smile was too wide, the eyes were too bright, and there was something predatory about the way this other Katie was looking at us. "What the hell?" I whispered. Katie had gone completely pale. She was staring at the screen in shock, looking back and forth between the webcam and the image of herself on the monitor. "That's not possible," she whispered. The other Katie on the screen tilted her head and mouthed something. It took me a moment to realize she was saying, "Hello, Katie." My real sister scrambled backward from the computer, knocking over her chair in the process. "Turn it off," she said frantically. "Turn it off right now." I reached for the laptop, but before I could close it, the other Katie held up a sign. It was a piece of paper with something written on it in Katie's handwriting. "Don't leave me alone." "This isn't real," I said, trying to convince myself as much as Katie. "This is some kind of deep fake or video manipulation or..." The other Katie held up another sign. "I've been waiting so long to meet you." Katie grabbed my arm. "Please close the laptop. This is scaring me." But I was transfixed. I had to understand what was happening. I leaned toward the microphone. "Who are you?" I asked. The other Katie smiled that too wide smile and held up another sign. "I'm Katie. The real Katie. She's the fake one." My sister made a choking sound and ran out of the room. I could hear her footsteps pounding down the hallway toward our parents' room. I looked back at the screen. The other Katie was holding up a new sign. "She's scared because she knows the truth." "What truth?" I said out loud. Another sign appeared. "She's been pretending to be me for 13 years, but now it's time to switch back." This was insane. I was talking to some kind of elaborate hoax or hallucination, but I couldn't stop myself from engaging with it. "That's impossible. Katie is my sister. I've known her my entire life." The other Katie shook her head sadly and held up a new sign. "Check her birth certificate. Check her medical records. You'll see the truth." "I don't need to check anything. I know who my sister is." The other Katie pointed at something off screen and then held up a sign that made my heart skip a beat. "Then why does she have a scar on her left shoulder that you don't know about?" I frowned. Katie had never mentioned a scar on her shoulder. But then again, why would she? "Because," another sign appeared. "She got it the night she took my place." I was about to respond when Katie came back into the room with our parents behind her. "What's going on in here?" my dad asked. Katie said something scared her on the computer. I turned to explain, but when I looked back at the screen, it just showed a normal Omegle chat with a message that said, "Your partner has disconnected." "There was someone on here pretending to be Katie," I said. "They looked exactly like her, but something was wrong." My parents exchanged glances. My mom put her arm around Katie. "Honey, there are people on the internet who can manipulate videos to make them look like anyone they want," she said gently. "It's called deepfake technology. Someone was probably just trying to scare you." But I couldn't let it go. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I snuck into Katie's room while she was sleeping. I carefully lifted the sleeve of her pajama shirt and looked at her left shoulder. There it was, a small crescent-shaped scar that I'd never noticed before. I stared at it for a long time, my mind racing. How had the person on Omegle known about a scar that even I, Katie's older brother, had never seen? The next morning, I asked Katie about it. "Oh, that," she said casually. "I fell off my bike when I was little and cut it on a piece of metal. It was no big deal." "When did that happen?" "I don't remember you getting hurt like that." Katie paused, thinking. "I don't know, maybe when I was 7 or 8. You might not have been there. But that was the thing, I was always there. We did everything together when we were kids." I would have remembered Katie getting hurt badly enough to leave a scar. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention to Katie, looking for other inconsistencies. Little things that I had never noticed before started to bother me. She was left-handed now, but I could swear she used to be right-handed. She hated chocolate ice cream, but I remembered her loving it when she was younger. She was afraid of dogs, but we used to have a dog that she adored. When I brought these things up, she always had explanations. People's preferences change as they grow up. She had switched to being left-handed because a teacher told her it was better for her brain development. She developed a fear of dogs after being bitten by a neighbor's dog. All reasonable explanations, but they didn't feel right to me. One night, I decided to go back on Omegle and see if I could find the other Katie again. I turned on my webcam and started connecting with random people, hoping against hope that I would see that too familiar face again. It took 3 hours, but eventually she appeared on my screen. This time, she was sitting in what looked like a perfect replica of our living room. But again, everything was backward. She waved when she saw me and held up a sign. "I knew you'd come back." "What do you want?" I typed in the chat. "I want my life back." "I want my family back. That's impossible." "Katie is my sister. She's been my sister for 13 years. The other Katie shook her head and held up a series of signs, one after another. She replaced me when we were both 7 years old. I was the real Katie, but I got lost in the mirror world. She's been living my life ever since. But now the barriers are getting weaker. Soon, I'll be able to come back. And she'll have to take my place here." I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was reading. "This is crazy. You're not real. This is just some kind of internet hoax." The other Katie looked sad and held up another sign. "Look in your sister's closet. Behind the shoeboxes, you'll find proof." Despite every rational part of my brain telling me this was nonsense, I found myself writing down her instructions. What kind of proof? Things that belonged to me. Things she took when she made the switch. The other Katie suddenly looked frightened and glanced over her shoulder. She held up one final sign quickly. "Someone's coming. Don't trust her. Find the proof." Then the screen went black. I sat there for several minutes staring at the disconnected chat screen. Everything about this situation was impossible, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to check Katie's closet. The next day, while Katie was at school and my parents were at work, I went into her room. I felt terrible about invading her privacy, but I had to know. Her closet was neat and organized, just like Katie had always been. I moved the shoeboxes aside and looked behind them. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. But then I noticed a small opening in the back wall of the closet, hidden behind a loose board. Inside the opening was a small metal box. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside were items that made no sense. A hospital bracelet with Katie's name on it, but dated from a time when Katie had never been in the hospital. A school photo of Katie that looked exactly like her current school photos, but it was labeled as being from a school she had never attended. And strangest of all, a diary written in Katie's handwriting, but describing experiences that had never happened. The diary entries were disturbing. They talked about being trapped, about watching someone else live her life, about trying to find a way back home. The final entry was dated just 2 weeks ago. "I think I found a way to reach him. If I can get to the computer world, I might be able to make contact. I have to try. I can't stay trapped here forever while she lives my life." I dropped the diary, my hands shaking. This had to be some kind of elaborate prank that Katie was playing on me, but why? And how could she have known that I would talk to someone on Omegle who looked like her? That night, when Katie came home from school, I confronted her about the box. Her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of confusion or anger at me for going through her things, she went completely pale and sank down onto her bed. "You found it," she whispered. "Katie, what is this stuff? Why do you have a diary talking about being trapped? What's going on?" She looked at me for a long moment, and for just an instant, I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Fear, guilt, and something else that looked almost like relief. "I can't tell you," she said quietly. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." Katie was quiet for several minutes, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What if I told you that I'm not really your sister?" My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" "What if I told you that I took her place when we were 7, and the real Katie has been trapped somewhere else ever since?" I stared at her, not knowing what to say. "What if I told you that I've been living a lie for 6 years and I'm scared that someday she's going to find a way to come back and reclaim her life?" "Katie, that's impossible." She looked up at me and I saw tears in her eyes. "Is it?" "You've been talking to her, haven't you? On the computer. She looks like me but different. She knows things about our family that she shouldn't know." I nodded slowly, unable to deny it. "She's been trying to contact someone for months. First through dreams, then through mirrors, and now through the internet. She's getting stronger. But how is any of this possible?" Katie stood up and walked to her mirror. She placed her hand flat against the glass. "Because mirrors aren't just reflections. Sometimes they're doorways, and sometimes people can slip through from one side to the other." As she spoke, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. In the mirror, Katie's reflection was doing something different than Katie herself. While the real Katie was standing still with her hand on the glass, her reflection was writing something on the surface of the mirror. In backward letters, the reflection had written, "Help me." I grabbed Katie's arm and pulled her away from the mirror. "We need to tell Mom and Dad about this. They won't believe us. They'll think we're both crazy. Then what do we do?" Katie looked back at the mirror where her reflection was now pounding silently against the glass. "I think," she said quietly, "it's time for me to go back where I belong." Before I could stop her, Katie placed both hands against the mirror and pushed. The glass rippled like water, and Katie's hands disappeared into the surface. "Katie, no!" I shouted, grabbing her shoulders and trying to pull her back, but it was too late. She was already halfway through the mirror, and I could see the other Katie on the opposite side, reaching out to take her place. The last thing Katie said to me was, "Take care of her. She's the real Katie. She deserves to come home." Then she was gone, and the other Katie stepped through the mirror into our world. She looked exactly the same, but I could tell the difference immediately. This Katie moved differently, spoke differently, even smelled different. "Hello, brother," she said and smiled. That was 2 years ago. The Katie who came through the mirror has been living with us ever since, and no one else in my family knows the difference. She has all of Katie's memories, all of her mannerisms, all of her relationships. But sometimes, late at night, I catch her staring into mirrors with an expression I can't quite read, and sometimes I think I can see the other Katie in the reflection, the one who took her place in whatever world exists on the other side of the glass. She looks sad and trapped and desperate to come home, and I wonder if someday she'll find another way through. Story 5. The typing ghost. I was home alone on a Thursday night, procrastinating on a term paper that was due the next morning. Instead of writing, I decided to waste time on Omegle chatting with strangers. It seemed like a better use of my time than staring at a blank Word document. The first few conversations were typical, people asking where I was from, what I looked like, the usual small talk. Then I connected with someone who seemed different from the start. They didn't say hello. They didn't ask any questions. Instead, the first message that appeared on my screen was, "I can see you typing before you send your messages." I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. That was impossible. Omegle didn't show when someone was typing. Unlike most other chat platforms. What do you mean? I typed back. I can see every word you type, even the ones you delete. Right now you typed, what do you mean? But before that, you started to type, that's impossible, and then deleted it. They were right. I had started to type, that's impossible, but changed my mind and decided to ask what they meant instead. Lucky guess, I replied. You just typed, how did you know that? And then deleted it before typing, lucky guess. Again, they were exactly right. I was starting to get spooked. Okay, how are you doing this? I don't know. But I can see everything you type in real time. It's like watching someone think. I decided to test them. I started typing a long message about how this was probably some kind of hack or software trick. Then deleted the whole thing and typed something completely different. This is weird but kind of cool. Immediately, they responded. You wrote a paragraph about how I'm probably using some kind of hack to see your typing. Then you deleted it all and wrote that instead. You're trying to test me. I felt a chill run down my spine. There was no way they could know that unless they really could see everything I was typing. Are you some kind of hacker? No, I'm just a regular person. But ever since I started using this site 3 days ago, I've been able to see things I shouldn't be able to see. Like what? Like your typing. Like the fact that you're sitting in a dorm room with textbooks scattered on your desk. Like the fact that you have a term paper due tomorrow morning that you haven't started yet. I looked around my room in alarm. They were describing my situation perfectly. How do you know all that? I can see more than just your typing. I can see glimpses like looking through your eyes sometimes. That's impossible. I know it's impossible, but it's happening. Right now you're looking at your door to make sure it's locked. You just checked your window too. I had done exactly that without even realizing it. This is freaking me out. I'm sorry. I don't mean to scare you. I'm scared too. This started happening 3 days ago and I don't understand it. What started happening 3 days ago? I was on here talking to someone just like we're talking now. But something went wrong with the connection. The chat started glitching, showing me messages before people sent them, letting me see things I shouldn't be able to see. What kind of things? Personal things. Private things. I could see into people's rooms, see what they were doing while they chatted. At first I thought it was some kind of weird camera hack, but then I realized I was seeing things that no camera could capture. Like what? Like thoughts. Like memories. Like fears. I was about to ask them to elaborate when something strange happened. Text appeared on my screen that I hadn't typed. You're thinking about disconnecting right now. You think this person is crazy or dangerous. I stared at the message in shock. I hadn't typed those words, but they had appeared in the chat as if I had sent them. I didn't type that, I typed quickly. I know. But you were thinking it. Sometimes your thoughts come through as messages. This was getting too weird. I started to close the laptop, but another message appeared on the screen before I could. Please don't leave. I haven't been able to talk to anyone about this. Everyone else just disconnects when strange things start happening. I can't help you. This is too weird for me. I understand. But can you do me one favor before you go? Despite every instinct telling me to shut off the computer and go to bed, I found myself asking, what? Tell me your name. Why? Because I'm starting to forget who I am. The more I see into other people's minds, the more I lose pieces of myself. I need to remember that other people are real, that I'm real. There was something deeply sad about that message that made my heart ache. My name is David. Thank you, David. My name is, there was a long pause, then I can't remember. Isn't that strange? I can see into your mind, but I can't remember my own name. How is that possible? I think something happened to me when the chat glitched. I think I got stuck somewhere between the internet and reality. I can see everyone, but no one can see me. Not really. That doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. But it's happening anyway. Suddenly my computer screen flickered. For just a moment, instead of the Omegle interface, I saw what looked like a person sitting in a dark room. They were young, maybe college-aged like me, with pale skin and dark circles under their eyes. They looked exhausted and frightened. Then the screen flickered back to the normal chat interface. "Did you see me?" They typed immediately. I think so. For just a second, what did I look like? I described what I had seen. I don't remember looking like that. I don't remember what I looked like at all. A terrible thought occurred to me. When was the last time you looked in a mirror? I don't remember. I don't think I can anymore. I tried, but mirrors just show static now. Like my reflection doesn't exist. Where are you right now? I don't know. Somewhere dark. I can't see anything around me. But I can see through other people's eyes when I connect with them. It's like I exist in the spaces between conversations. I felt a deep chill. This person wasn't just using some weird software or playing an elaborate prank. Something genuinely disturbing was happening to them. How long have you been stuck like this? I don't know. Time doesn't work the same way here. Sometimes I feel like I've been here forever, and sometimes it feels like it just happened. Is there anything I can do to help? I don't think so, but could you stay and talk to me for a while? It gets so lonely here, and when I'm talking to you, I feel more real. I looked at my term paper, still waiting to be written, then back at the screen. This person needed help even if I couldn't understand what was happening to them. Okay, I'll stay for a while. Thank you. Can you tell me about yourself? What your life is like? I want to remember what it's like to be real. So I told them about my life, about college, about my friends, about my family back home, about my hopes and fears and dreams for the future. And as I typed, I could feel them listening. Really listening, in a way that felt more intimate than any conversation I'd ever had. In return, they told me what they could remember about their own life, fragments of memories, pieces of a person who had once been whole. They remembered liking pizza and hating math. They remembered a dog named Charlie and a best friend named Sarah. They remembered being afraid of the dark, which made their current situation all the more tragic. We talked for hours. At some point, I completely forgot about my term paper, forgot about everything except this strange, sad person who seemed to exist in the spaces between digital connections. But as the night wore on, something began to change. The messages from them started becoming more erratic, less coherent. Can you see me now? See you where? Behind you. In your room. I think I'm starting to bleed through. I spun around in my chair, but there was nothing behind me except my empty dorm room. There's no one here. Look closer. In the shadows. I'm getting stronger. I examined every corner of my room, but I was definitely alone. I don't see anyone. That's because you're not looking hard enough. I'm right. Wait, something's wrong. What's wrong? I can see through your eyes, but I can also see you. From across the room. That's not possible unless... There was a long pause, then a message that made my blood run cold. Unless I'm really there. I looked around my room again, more carefully this time. In the corner by my closet, where the shadows were deepest, I thought I could make out a faint outline. The suggestion of a human shape, barely visible in the darkness. David, I think I'm in your room. The shape in the corner seemed to shift slightly. I don't know how this is possible, but I think I'm starting to materialize in the places where I have the strongest connections. And right now, the strongest connection is with you. I stared at the shadow, trying to convince myself I was imagining things, but the more I looked, the more solid it seemed to become. Are you scared? They typed. Yes, I answered honestly. So am I. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if I'm dead or alive or something in between. The figure in the corner definitely moved that time. It raised what might have been a hand and waved weakly. Can you see me waving? I nodded, then realized they might not be able to see my nod. Yes, this is so strange. I can feel myself existing in two places at once. In the digital space where we're chatting, and in your physical space. It's like I'm stretched between two worlds. What do you want from me? I want to remember who I am. I want to go home, but I don't remember where home is anymore. Maybe I can help you figure it out. How? Tell me more about your memories, about Charlie and Sarah and your life before this happened. For the next hour, we worked together to piece together fragments of their past. They remembered a college campus with red brick buildings. They remembered a roommate who always left dirty dishes in the sink. They remembered majoring in psychology and wanting to help people understand the mind. As they recovered more memories, the figure in my room became more solid, more real. I could make out features now. A young person with short dark hair and kind eyes wearing clothes that looked oddly old-fashioned. "I think I'm starting to remember," they typed. My name was Alex. I was a junior at Whitmore College. I was studying late one night when I decided to take a break and chat with people online. What happened that night? I connected with someone on Omegle, but something went wrong. The chat started glitching, showing me things that weren't there. And then, I don't remember. Everything went dark, and when I could think clearly again, I was stuck in this place between places. When did this happen? I don't know. What year is it now? I told them, and there was a long pause. That's impossible. I remember it being 1997. My heart sank. I looked up Whitmore College on my phone. It had been closed since 1998 due to a tragic incident where several students had died in a dormitory fire. "Alex," I typed carefully. "I think you died. A long time ago." The figure in my room flickered like a bad TV signal. That can't be right. I feel so real right now. You are real. You're just not alive. But I don't want to be dead. I want to go home. I want to see Sarah again. Sarah might be dead too, Alex. It's been over 20 years. The figure in my room began to fade, becoming translucent again. No, that's not right. I was just talking to someone online. It was just a few days ago. Time works differently when you're dead, remember? You said so yourself. Alex was quiet for a long time. When they finally typed again, it was with a sadness that broke my heart. I've been dead for 20 years? I think so. And I've been trapped in the internet all this time? It seems that way. All those people I've been talking to, they were all real, and I was just a ghost haunting their conversations. You're not haunting anyone. You're just lost, and maybe talking to me has helped you find some peace. The figure in my room was barely visible now, like smoke dissipating in the wind. "I think I'm ready to go now," Alex typed. "I can feel something calling me, somewhere warm and bright. Are you going to be okay?" "I think so. Thank you, David. Thank you for helping me remember who I was. Thank you for staying with me." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You gave me back my humanity, even if it was just for a few hours." The last message from Alex appeared on my screen. "Goodbye, David. Live a good life for both of us." Then the chat showed your partner has disconnected, and the figure in my room faded away completely. I sat in silence for a long time, processing what had just happened. When I finally looked at the clock, it was 6 a.m. I had less than 3 hours to write my term paper, but somehow, that didn't seem important anymore. I never told anyone about my conversation with Alex. Who would believe me? But sometimes, late at night when I'm online, I think about them and wonder if there are others like them. Lost souls trapped in the spaces between our digital connections, looking for someone to help them remember who they used to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, I go on Omegle and chat with strangers, hoping that maybe I can help another lost soul find their way home.